I have lived away from my family for quite some time. And I remember getting a phone call where my mother was, I don't know, it was a strange response from my mother because she was calling to download me on the activities that the family was going through, what they were doing. But when she made this phone call, it was weird. My mom is the second oldest of many, many siblings. I don't know, there's a lot of them, 11, 13, 15, 97, something. There's a lot of them. And therefore, I have a lot of first cousins. A lot. There's at least 30 plus of us, at least. My mom's youngest brother was hospitalized. Now, before you get to oohing and ahhing, he had had a severe drug problem since probably the 1970s, 80s at least. And he was out there on that cocaina. Amongst other things, I think he graduated summa cum laude to crack. He probably took some other stuff, ain't no telling what he did. And he was already kind of a shifty, shady kind of dude. So he, robbery, all that kind of stuff was in his wheelhouse. But his crimes were stupid. They were silly. Like I remember he went to jail, went to prison for trying to rob a convenience store high as eagle ass. He tried to rob a convenience store with the leg off of a coffee table. That was his weapon of choice. Yeah. Anyway, from what I remember, he had went to my grandmother's house. He needed money for his fix or whatever, and he threatened my grandmother. Why would you do that? She is the matriarch of our family. He threatened my grandmother, and my grandmother was one of those type of women. Nobody in my family, we didn't play about my grandmama. No, sir. So some of my much, much younger nephews, like my younger brother is 2 years younger than I am. I think these cousins of mine were maybe 2 or 3 years younger than my younger brother. So they were at least 5 years or so or more younger than I was. I'd been gone for a while. But from what I understand, for threatening my grandmother, they caught him out somewhere and beat the brakes off of him. Now, I say all that to say, because this story is not about him getting beat up. This story is about his path back. Prison, halfway house, rehab, and about redemption. And you know how I am with my quotes. And this one comes from the Shawshank Redemption. And I guess it's a simple choice, really. You either get busy living or you get busy dying. Hello, Governor. It's Rick Highsteed, Noob from the Ville, here to talk about Sherlock, Season 4, Episode 1. This one is called the Six Thatchers. Mycroft has some footage of Charles Augustus Magnuson being shot at the end of Season 3. Now, we know that he was shot in the head by Sherlock. Sherlock, pointed at the dome and rock-a-bye, baby. Yeah. But Mycroft had his people manipulate the footage to make it look like Magnuson was taken out by a sniper. And look at the privilege. Sherlock is off the hook. You just walk up and shoot a man in the face, and he did 4 minutes of exile and sent on a plane to a mission somewhere else before he came right back. Anyway, Mary gives birth to a daughter who they call Rosamund Mary. John, being the ever-loving and dutiful husband, meets a woman on the bus. She gives him a glance and says hi. He says hi. And next thing you know, he's got a number and they're texting. And the series absolutely alluded to the fact that John is having an affair with this woman. And we see him text her that it's over. What the deuce? Mycroft and Scotland Yard come to Sherlock, and that's also including Lestrade, hoping to figure out something about Moriarty's scheme. But in the meantime, one of the conservative cabinet ministers, his son was found dead at his home. His son was supposed to be taking some time off from college and spending a gap year in Tibet, because, if you want to go travel the world while you're not in college, what other better places are to go than Tibet? But he had come home to surprise his parents, had a seizure while he was hiding in the car in front of their house. And about a week later, when he was supposed to hatch the surprise, turned out that he had died in the car from that seizure, but a drunk driver hit the car, and that's how they found the body. And they were confused because they're like, how the hell did the body get here? He's supposed to be in Tibet. But he was never in Tibet at all. What they noticed is that inside the house, the only thing that was missing was a bust, a small statue of the head of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. And it had been moved and it was busted on the floor, or on the porch. Over the next few weeks, Sherlock finds out that there were more busts of Margaret Thatcher at other people's homes. That was all part of the same batch of bust of Margaret Thatcher. And they had all been busted, but some of them had led to some people getting killed. Sherlock was on a stakeout of the last one that was of this particular batch. And while he was there, a culprit ran up on him. They got into a fight. Sherlock's getting his ass kicked a lot of bit, but he's making it through it, and the suspect gets away. Sherlock busts the statue of Margaret Thatcher. Inside it is a memory stick, flash drive, labeled AGRA, the exact same one that Mary had, but she gave it to Watson, and remember, he threw it in the fireplace. So how is there another one that's exactly like it? What the hell? Sherlock questions Mary, and she, talks about her time as a freelance agent on a team named AGRA. And the AGRA stood for the first name of each person on the team. All of the people on the team had the same flash drive. That way it was mutually assured destruction. No one would snitch, no one would tell on each other. However, we find out all of this is related to a case 6 years ago in Sibili at the British Embassy. Tbilisi, at the British Embassy. The people were tipped off and it went horribly wrong, and everyone on the team died except for Mary and AJ. Even though Mary, up until just now, thought that AJ was dead also. But AJ was told by the captors that it was Mary who betrayed the group. They kept saying the British woman. There were 3 guys on the team and Mary, so AJ's like, oh, you betrayed us. Sherlock figures out that the word ammo kept coming up, ammo. But it's not ammo, A-M-M-O, it should be A-M-O, the Latin word for I love, which suggests that it was Lady Smallwood, because her code name was love. Lady Smallwood is questioned by Mycroft, and she says that she's innocent. So Sherlock ends up meeting Lady Smallwood's assistant, Vivian Norbury, in the London Aquarium. And Vivian confesses she's the one that tipped off the terrorists at Tbilisi in Georgia using the code AMO, thus suggesting that it was Lady Smallwood, or even suggesting that it was Mary who betrayed the whole group. Now, her motive was that she wanted to kill the British ambassador who was there because they found out that Vivian, as the secretary, personal assistant to Lady Smallwood, had been selling government secrets. Vivian, pissed that Sherlock figured it out and she wasn't going to go retire, grabs a gun and goes to shoot Sherlock. And at the last minute, Mary jumps in front of the bullet. She professes her love and her gratitude to John and to Sherlock, and then she dies. John is grief-stricken, and he blames Sherlock for this, because Sherlock, several episodes ago, had vowed to protect Mary. When he gets home, Mycroft finds a sticky note reading 13th and a place called Sherinford. Sherlock actually gets some therapy. He goes to John's therapist, but he can't open up. Miss Hudson gives Sherlock a DVD which contains a posthumous message from Mary, where she was telling Sherlock, you have to save John Watson. Whatever you do, save John. Sherlock tries to go visit him, but Molly gives him a note from John and tells him that John doesn't want to see him and he would rather have anyone else's help in the world except for Sherlock's. You know how I love my quotes, and this one is from Aisha Terriam. She says, the road to redemption is a treacherous one that the accused must walk through in darkness. But if we don't shine the light, then there is no hope for anyone finding their way from the other side. And the thing about redemption is it does require hope, and it does require help. I decided to call this deep dive, this media therapy, questionable choices. Because throughout our life, we all make, at some point or another, we make some questionable choices. I have a friend of mine who is adept. He is so good at sabotaging his own life, it makes no sense. And he got better. He's not as bad as he once was, but for real. You know, I started off with a story about my uncle, and rest in peace to my uncle. He did eventually pass, not from that particular situation. He was a magnet for awful shit that happened to him. He just could not get out of his own way. And a lot can be said about how you spend your time on this earth, but more importantly, how you leave it. And why did I say that's more importantly? None of us knows what happens when we get to the end. You don't know. If you're the religious sort, you could say, you can spend the eternity in paradise or in damnation. Which one of those, that's up to you, and how your religious doctrine or lack thereof. But what do you leave here on earth for the people who knew you and who loved you or despised you? My uncle, towards the end of his life, he wanted redemption. He wanted to be better, but he was too weak of a man to get it. He could not get past himself. He could not get past his personal vices. and the addictions that he had won almost every time. In this episode of Sherlock, we saw Mary do so much. And just in case, remember I said that AGRA stood for the initials of each person in the group? Well, we learned earlier that Mary wasn't even her real name. Mary was the name of an infant who had died 6-7 years earlier, and she took the name of Mary Morstan from an infant who passed. Mary was not her name. And John said, he didn't want to know. He didn't want to know about the past. He didn't want to know. She called herself Mary. It was good enough for him. But what we learned is that the R was for her. She was Rosamond. And the name that they gave their daughter, Rosamond Mary, they named their daughter after her. She had a selfless act where she threw herself in front of the bullet to save Sherlock's life. Because I think Mary truly did love Sherlock. He's a flawed individual. And she absolutely loved her husband, John, who's a damaged, flawed individual. I was not particularly happy with their choice to make him an adulterer in this particular episode. Because then he's even more guilt-ridden because he was going to tell her, and she stopped him. So they got called to do something else or go meet the Vivian chick at the aquarium, and he never got to tell her what he was doing. And as sharp as Mary was, I think she already knew. She was just waiting for him to come clean. She was sharp because it seemed very out of character for John. So now she died before he could be redeemed for wronging her. For whatever his reasons were, whatever he started this kind of emotional relationship with this woman that he met on the bus. Was he tired of being a father and the all that came with that? He was already taking care of a big ass baby in Sherlock. But what he had between he and his wife was now gone because they both had to look after this daughter. And their dynamic shifted so quickly after being in trauma bonding because of all the danger that they went through in their adventures. The road to redemption is fraught with wicked deeds and good intentions. But if anything, this episode about making questionable choices in your life is that hopefully you live long enough to make some of your crooked straight, to figure your shit out. As always, you've heard me a million times say that I'm an advocate for mental health. Find a therapist. No, it's not the same as going to church and praying. It's not the same as just talking to your homeboy, your homegirl, and using them as a sounding board. It's not the same. It's not the same as coming to this media therapy with me. It's not the same. I'm just a dude with a little bit of experience. What you may need is a licensed professional. Works for me. Hopefully it'll work for you. But it's hard to get through this life without hope. You have to remember, when you wrong somebody, they don't have to forgive you. You hope they will. Because forgiveness is not for you, it'll be for them. But most of all, you need to forgive yourself. And when you can, be that light. Be the hope for someone else who is seeking forgiveness and redemption. This is Rakai Steed, Noob from the Ville. Make sure that you like, comment, share this as much as possible. And if you have not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. There's some other gems in here. There's a few bangers in here too. Some good videos in here, and there might be something that resonates with you. Remember, at all times, it's about this, but just as much as it's about this, is about this.